from the government, and I'm here to help.
Take a look, it's in a book.
Some members of the community use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda.
Let's watch Figure It Out.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the We Figured It Out podcast. It's your boy, Michael.
And I'm Matt.
And today we have from the Christian and Conspiracy podcast. And now you got another segment, right? Your Sunday service
And Wednesday service, yeah. So
and Wednesday.
The show is just like this: Josh Monday, Christian and Conspiracy podcast, and then my so on Cult and Conspiracy, I have a Sunday service and Wednesday service now. So, and that's where I'm going through the Bible. We just finished with the book of Leviticus last night. Well, it's actually going to be coming out Sunday, and then I just finished the book of Matthew and started the book of Mark on the Wednesday service. So I'm doing the Old Testament on Sunday service and the New Testament on Wednesday service.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It is fun, man. It's opened me up because I got so stuck on the book of Genesis for a long time because everybody wanted me to do biblical cosmology, and then we're about to do the Nephilim now, but it's actually opening up my horizons way more when you study the whole entire Bible. So
Nice. What's your favorite part of it right now that you're getting back into?
well, I'm learning the book of Leviticus. It was very hard at first. I was like, man, should I even do the book of Leviticus? I don't even know if people want to hear this, because it's very it's all about the laws and everything of the priesthood, right? The Levitical priest, right? So you start getting all these thoughts in your mind. Probably Satan's putting them in, or no, trying to say like, oh, you don't want to teach this, just go right to the book of Numbers. But as I'm studying the book of Leviticus, I'm finding out that pastors are saying that this is the spot where everybody stops. And it's actually super important for you to understand what Jesus did for us on the cross, right? So there's so many different things that God was trying to just make the Israelites holy, right? So it's really fun, man. It's just learning all that stuff it was humbling, first of all, because it makes you feel like, wow, like what Jesus did for us on the cross is amazing, so it helps you there. It's like a picture of that, so, but I like the book of Genesis though. Like it was fun. That was the funnest to teach through.
Yeah.
Because there's so many events happening,
Mhm.
and then you get to like Exodus and there's some events happening. And then Leviticus is like all about laws and Levitical law and what the priests need to do. So it was a whole change of,
How'd you get through just the begottens alone? That is,
oh yeah.
that's
Well, those
great.
are, here's the funny
It's
part.
very prevalent, but it is a brutal read.
Yes, it is. But it's like you see certain things happening though, like in the begottens that are actually important when you put the whole Bible into context, right? So you're gonna see certain things like just like when you're reading the Bible now, like once you learn about the Nephilim, then you see these certain tribes, and then you're like, oh, that's what God is talking about, the Nephilim. So if you didn't know that, then you're just gonna read through and just think they're just talking about some tribe that don't matter. But
Right?
it
Get
does
lost in
matter.
all the begottens for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, but what I want, my whole goal is to make sure I read every single word and the whole entire Bible, no matter what.
Understand.
Whether it's adventurous, fun, good event, or something that might seem boring to people, because I'm like, you know what, I don't care. I'm just gonna go through it, and it's been working out. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
God.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It is definitely a long read and you got to commit to it, I feel like.
Yeah.
If you want to get something out of it.
Yeah, and you got to make sure you study, because I don't want to
Mhm.
I don't want to go up there. I have people that there's people in the conspiracy side that they don't ever get they don't get really biblical teaching at all. They're stuck in conspiracy so much that they get sprinkled with Bible verses once in a while. So they're like, okay, that's cool, sounds good. And even my show, I'm guilty of it. I was digging so much into conspiracies, I was sprinkling it with Bible verses instead of concentrating on the Bible and then sprinkling it with conspiracy. That would be the better way to go. So on cult conspiracy, I just told the people that, hey, I'm going to go 100% in the Bible, and then if I know something connects to a conspiracy, I'll mention it. But I'm not trying to sit here and do conspiracies, because you guys get fed enough of that with cult conspiracy, and there's so much New Age and spiritualism and DMT and all these different things in the conspiracy. Oh, I'll say it's right here, conspiracy industry, that it's like I'm trying to take those people and show them the real truth. So I know that the Bible for me is the real truth, and I know who the real God is. And I'm not trying to teach you about a creator or some creator that I'm not naming. I'm telling you about the creator, the one that actually created the heavens and the earth, and I'm trying to bring it to them so that they, when they're digging in these rabbit holes, they have something that actually some truth at the end of it, instead of just continue to dig and never
Yep.
finding the truth, which I think is actually purposeful. I think that some of that stuff is purposeful for people to keep digging and digging, and then they never find the actual truth. So I think it's important for you to have a biblical foundation before you dig into conspiracies, because you know who the one is. If the conspiracies are true, the stuff that you are digging into, then you know who your adversary is that even would cause a conspiracy in the first place, right? So people need to know that, and then you need to know who would take you out of that, who's going to
Right.
help you and assist you.
Well,
Yep.
see,
Instead,
I think that's kind of how I kind of came about it more is looking into Christianity more was I was more into conspiracy theory, and then I was like, wait, a lot of things line up with Bible actually more than like I was opposed to, you know? So it was, yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess it kind of works both ways though. You can like, I think you grab people out of just the conspiracy realm and kind of bring them like, hey, here's the Bible though too, you know?
yeah,
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 a lot of people say that conspiracy brought them to the Bible. So, I mean, that's good.
that
Yeah,
is good.
it's
Yeah,
a
for
good
sure.
like
That
in between for sure.
People,
yeah,
especially people like on the fence, you kind of segued that perfect though, with like, where was it? The Nephilim and how we have people kind of just sprinkling stuff in here or holding on to, sort of not exactly Christ, but they oh, there's a creator out there, and
yeah,
that that's one of my biggest pet peeves, right? It's like, well, who's your creator then, and nobody ever really has the answer for that. And it's like, well, I could give you an answer for that.
yeah.
And so
What's the name of your God? That's what I ask him.
yes,
When people try to tell me about the creator, like when I have people on my show, this is another thing, man. I would suggest that, going forward, man, try to filter people you have on your show, because sometimes, I mean, I had so many guests on the show where I have them on, they say they were Christian or whatever, and then all of a sudden, that's you start figuring out like, this is maybe not Christianity I'm into, or there's just different things where you're
yep.
just going to be like, it's frustrating. But anyways, I'm not trying to
I
censor
remember
people, but
I
go
remember
ahead.
a couple of your episodes where you pray at the end of every single one, and there were some of them where you kicked the guest off. You're like, I'm not going to even pray for this person because that's not
Yeah,
what they're about.
yeah, not necessarily pray for them, but I kick them
Involve
off
them,
because
yeah.
I don't think that I don't think they're Christians. So I mean, what are they going to do? Stand there and just stare at the screen or put? I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, I do that. That's very true. And I'm not
Yeah,
trying to trying to be rude. I just like
you
to
have to
keep me
do
in
that.
the
Kind
audience.
of
Yeah,
sense,
hmm
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
No,
kind of
I mean,
learned.
God's that way though too. If you don't want to listen eventually, it's not that he's going to go anywhere. The voice, his word isn't going to go anywhere. It's just no longer going to come to you. It's going to
Yeah.
be filtered out to other people who want it. And that's kind of you're an example of that, I believe. It's like, well, you're not going to get the word then because you don't want it.
Yeah, we just keep trying. We just keep trying, and that's all we can do. But okay, so when it comes to the Nephilim, we'll get to there so that we
Yes.
don't. So okay, so what I do, like, to validate the Book of Genesis, I kind of do this on my biblical cosmology, and I'll do it here. So you could go to John 5:46, and Jesus says, "For if you believe Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. If you do not believe his writings, how you believe my words?" So that's validating Moses, right there, and validating the Torah, right? That's Jesus talking. And then Numbers 12 verses 4 through 8. This is when the Lord is speaking to Aaron and Miriam in the tabernacle, and he's telling Aaron and Miriam is, "Hey, I come to prophets in visions and in dreams, but when I come to Moses, I speak to him face to face or mouth to mouth." Right. So also in the book of Exodus, it happens again where God says, "I'm speaking to Moses like a friend." So when he went to Mount Sinai, he was up there for 40 days, 40 nights. God downloaded him a bunch of information, and I believe that Genesis was one of the things that God downloaded, because during Genesis 6, or during the creation, all that stuff, Moses was not alive. So how did he get all this information? How did he get Adam and Eve? How did he say, like, how does he know what Adam and Eve were speaking to each other? What the serpent was saying to Adam and Eve? He knows all that stuff because God told him. because God was the only one that was there, right? And also, even when you go all the way up to Joseph, like Moses is not alive yet. So how does he get all this information? So I believe it's a firsthand account from God speaking to Moses. So that validates the book of Genesis. So that way people understand that Genesis is not some allegory that you just want to read and just be like, hey, how do I spiritually connect this to my life? That's all I'm looking for in the Bible, and that's it. These are literal events that happen and literal people that God is talking about. This is not some made up story. This is not just some two people that God just talks about that he maybe created. Because if you look in the New Testament, it also says that God cannot lie, right? So it says that in Titus 1:2. Hebrews 6:18 says that it's impossible for God to lie.
Mm-hmm.
So when God is talking about these stories, then it's impossible for him to lie. So he's not going to be lying to Moses. So that kind of validates the book of Genesis to me, and also it validates the prophets because God comes to them in visions and dreams. So who are the visions coming from? They're coming from God, right? So just wanted to lay that out there first. And like I said, there's two ways you could take the Bible. You could take it literally, or you could take it like that it's God's authoritative word, or you could take it like, oh, I just want to find some spirituality out of the Bible, right? I take it literal, that it's God's authoritative word. In Second Timothy, it says that all scripture is inspired by God. So everything that's been being talked about, like I said, is the authoritative word of God. And I think with the Nephilim, you got to take it back to like Genesis 1:26, right? So God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let him have dominion over the fish, the sea, over the birds of the air, and all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him male and female. So God is creating us in his image, right? So if you're not made in God's image, then you are not going to be the one creeping or that's having dominion over the earth or over the fish in the sea. You are going to be something different, right? So when we get a little bit later to that, I'll tell you guys what's going on. So another verse I like to go to is Genesis 3, 13 through 15. This is like where Adam and Eve were talking, where Eve is talking to the serpent, and let me see, let me go here. So it's going to be, and the Lord said to the woman, what is this that you have done? The woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than the cattle and more than every beast on the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your heel, and you shall bruise you shall bruise his head, and you shall bruise his heel. So, what that's saying right there, first of all, that's talking about like Satan, right? That he has a seed. So, that's something that's pretty interesting. So, how does an angel or fallen angel have a seed? Because I believe that he has a seed because they're able to procreate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of opens up like a spiritual war between the devil and God, right? Where it's like some people call it a cosmic battle, a spiritual battle, whatever. It's like a spiritual chess match, right? So, what the devil is concentrating on from then on is he's concentrating on her seed. Like, what is that going to be? Is there some kind of Messiah coming, or what is happening here? So, you notice that right away when Eve had the two children, Cain and Abel, immediately the devil tempted Cain to kill Abel because he thought, since he probably saw the way he was doing his offerings, and he was like, okay, I could tell that Abel is doing them right. He's in obedience to the Lord, and I could tell that Cain is doing him wrong. So I think he tempted him to kill Abel right away. And he probably thought that he killed the Messiah right there, and he was probably excited, like, all right, cool, I'm good. But that's not what happened. The Messiah wasn't going to come until obviously later when Jesus came. So there's a chess match happening between, even though obviously God is going to win every chess match, and he is he's obviously the all knowing, knowing the future and the past. But you see that this cosmic chess match is actually happening between them. The spiritual chess match is happening. And what he's trying to do ultimately is since Cain and Abel was not the Messiah, then he knows it's going to happen later. So that was what he was concentrating on, I believe, when this verse happened in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. This is like the bread and butter verse for the Nephilim, right? It says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, and the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they were fair, and they took them as wives in which they chose. And the Lord said that spirit shall not strive with man forever. And it says that he also was flesh, and that these days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old and renowned. That word mighty men is like, is it? I can't remember that word. Gabrim, I think it is. I can't remember. Sorry, but anyways, that word basically, so it's going to be the sons of God, right? They came into the daughters of men. So the sons of God, when they're mentioned in the Old Testament, it's mentioned in like Job 1:6. It's mentioned in Job 2:1. It's mentioned in the book of Daniel. It's mentioned called the Son of God, not even a Son of God. And also it's mentioned in Job 38, where it says that the morning stars were singing and the sons of God were singing for Job, and God laid the foundations of the earth. So in the Old Testament, you only see that word sons of God being used for angels. You're not seeing it be used for men, or like the more holy men than the other,
Yep.
which is which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. That's the view that a lot of what would I say, not secular, I would say more liberal Bible schools are trying to teach,
Okay.
that the Sethites went into the daughters of Cain basically, and that they bore children, right? But for me, it doesn't make sense, and I think for most theologians that I've listened to, it doesn't make sense to a lot of them, because the sons of God never were mentioned in the Old Testament as being people. Now, in the New Testament, we do get that. We become sons of God, right? We're adopted sons of God. Um, but it doesn't say that we are sons of God. Sons of God are only a direct creation of God. So Adam would be called a son of God,
Yep.
but we are sons of Adam after that, right? So we're obviously we're not sons of God. And then angels would be sons of God. That's why when they're mentioned in that way. So any questions about anything we've gone over so far?
So you were saying they try to say the more liberal side, like it came from Cain
Well, like the
almost.
Sethites, yeah, like
Yeah.
basically Sethites were the good people hooked up with like the Canaanites, or the Cain's line, right? So,
Hmm.
but that separation wasn't even happening until later in the Bible anyways.
Okay.
God didn't say not to be together. And here's the thing, if that was true and I wanted to have a whole basketball team, I would be a Christian, right? And I would be saved, and I'd get with somebody that's a non-believer, and then we can hook up, and then I'll start an Olympic basketball team. That's not the way it works, obviously, right?
Yep.
So there's something more here to it, to where that's why it talks about giants being on the land, right? Because they bore children that were mighty men, or which were old and men of renown. That is actually talking about. That's why a lot of the myths are not people that they think are myths, like Hercules and all these different things. Well, a lot of people believe that that's not myths. That's stuff that happened, and that's the same kind of thing, but in Greek mythology, kind of biting from Genesis 6:4, where they're talking about like they would say a god or a demigod hooking up with a human and having like Hercules, right? So, and then that word giants in the Hebrew is Nephilim. It means fallen ones. Nephal, to fall away, to be cast down. And it says in the Strong's Concordance, giants or the Nephilim. That's the definition for that. And in the Septuagint, it's gigantes, right? And it means earthborn. Um, and
We're
then sons.
only we're only
Right.
the Nephilim giants.
We're
Like there
only the
wasn't.
Neph.
Yeah,
There's
there wasn't
Nephilim,
other
and then
giants.
there's Nephilim, and then there's Raphaim, right? So giants, the Nephilim were the ones before the flood, and then Raphaim are the ones that are after the flood. So it seems to be that they were probably smaller in stature than the Nephilim. So that's what you get when you're kind of reading. And you notice as you go into the book of Genesis later, like after the flood, you have the Raphaim, and there's different there's different interpretations for why the giants would come after the flood, right? So one of those interpretations is that they came through the son of Ham, right? Hold on, I think I might have accidentally copied and or deleted something. Let's see, paste. Okay. Anyways, there's there's some people that feel like they came through the wife of Ham, right? So because the reason why they believe that is because all the giants in the Genesis 14, 15 area, uh they were all like in the land of Canaan, right? And that's where they all came through the wife of Ham.
Okay.
Another one that you could also bring up, and I'm bringing all this stuff up because it all goes with the giant thing, right? So,
Hmm.
and another one that you could think about is maybe like Sodom and Gomorrah, because in Sodom and Gomorrah, when you go into that story, you have the two angels coming, and then Lot brings them into his house, and you have the whole entire city trying to come after those angels, right? And in the book of Jude, they say that the people were going after strange flesh. Strange flesh is not human. It's non-human. It's not booty or butt like people would think. Some people think it's just sodomy, but there was sodomy going on there. Yes, there was
Hmm.
gay sex, all that stuff was going on, or orgies. Yes, but think about it, bro. God, it says the Lord spoke to the Lord and they send fire and brimstone onto a city. Do you see that happening anywhere in the Bible? Like, do you see where God does that? Besides the flood, that was tremendous. But God is like literally just destroying a city. And it like I believe Jesus was on the earth and was speaking to God the Father, and they send fire and brimstone to this city. Now you're seeing you're seeing sodomy happening right now, obviously. Excuse me, I live in California. You got North Hollywood, you got San Francisco, you got all these places that all that's going on.
Yep.
And I'm not seeing any fire and brimstone being sent to that city. So that's another one where people would speculate that there was a second incursion happening, because when it says strange flesh, that's something that's not human. So I think they were trying to make uh, maybe trying to have sex with angels again and try to create Nephilim, and I think that's why they got destroyed.
Hmm.
And Jesus was actually, or the Lord, when he was on the earth, was actually talking to Abraham, and he was saying that he needs to go test that everything that everybody's been saying is true. Obviously, God already knows it's true, but that's why he sent the two angels. The two angels go over there, and Lot was being super generous to them, and he was actually passing the what I would say a test. But all the people in Sodom were literally trying to like break the door down to get to these angels. And even when the angels made them blind, they were all still trying to get in and trying to have sex with these angels. So
That's
it it
crazy.
it becomes really adherent that they wanted to try to get with these angels, and that was their whole basis, right? So
What did the angels look like? Were they? I mean, I guess it's the aura of an angel maybe that brings you after if you're corrupt, like the whole entire Sodom and Gomorrah was. But like,
yeah, who would know? I wouldn't know what they exactly look like, but I would say that because in Hebrews 13:2, they do come in the form of a human, right? So you never know when you're entertaining an angel, like you're entertaining strangers, entertaining angels unaware. So I do believe they come in the form of a human, but probably, I mean, I don't know what angels will look like, but they probably wouldn't be like some skinny,
yeah,
weak
right.
dude. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I believe they did know they were angels, though, and
it's Tom Brady over there. Everybody's like, "Come on."
yeah, yeah. So, and then also, the crazy part is Lot was actually offering his daughters, which are virgins, to these men, and because he didn't want them to try to sleep with these angels. I think Lot knew, like, dang, if this happens and you guys end up trying to rape these angels, then the whole city's going to be destroyed anyways. And then when so I just thought it was that's just one of the other ways that some people believe that the second incursion happened. Something happened. We're not sure. The Bible doesn't explain it, but these are just speculations on what happened. But yeah, so there ended up being giants after the flood, but they were like more like Nephilim. And as you read the book of Genesis, and let's say you read through, what you're going to find, you're going to see these giant tribes like the Amorites, like the Hittites, the Horites, and you're going to see that through the whole Bible, not the whole Bible, but the whole entire, from like Genesis to Numbers, you're going to see some of these giant tribes that are mentioned, and you're going to see that God keeps going against them. And if you didn't know what tribe these were, or that they were giants, then you would just think it's just another tribe. Like, why is God killing all the men, women, and children of this tribe? You also would be like, you see, like Sodom and Gomorrah. This is another reason why I think maybe the second incursion happened. There's a 5 king, 4 king war, and it's in Genesis 14. And Sodom and Gomorrah are fighting, in this war, and you have not fighting against each other, but with each other. But you also have Raphaim coming, and they're with them. They're like battling with them against the other people, right? So it's you see that happening. And then also another thing that I noticed in the Bible, like Abraham was in the land of Canaan, right? And you see that he's around all these giant tribes. They're all around, and through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they don't have their sons uh, commingling with these Canaanites. What they do is they send, like, for example, like Isaac, Abraham sends him 450 miles away back to where Abraham is from to find a wife. And then the same thing Isaac does with Jacob. Says, hey, you need to go back to where your mother's from and you need to go and find a wife there. They don't want him to be with the Canaanites.
Yeah.
But then Jacob has sorry, Isaac has Jacob and Esau, right? Jacob ends up following his dad's orders and going back, finding a wife. But what did Esau do? Esau ended up marrying a Horite, which is a giant. So that's one of the reasons why when the birthright thing was happening and then Isaac was blessing Jacob, the mom used that against Esau, saying, hey, he married people from around this, in this land. But your son's not going to do that. Jacob's not going to do that. That's one of the things that she used because it was important, I think, for God, and it's important for Jesus's line not to go through that line of the Raphaim or anything like that. So that's what I was noticing when I was reading the book of Genesis. It's fascinating and it opens my mind up way more when I'm reading and noticing little things like that. And
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, and I think Esau is another one that's kind of interesting. Uh, I had Justin Brown on, and he was talking about Esau, and it's really interesting. He was hairy, and he had he had red hair. So there was just some things about Esau that was interesting. And extra biblical text says some different things about him, but
Yeah.
I just
They
thought it was
also
interesting.
there are some sons of Cain too that, they question about that had like exceptional knowledge on like woodworking and metalwork, a couple of his sons that people were
Yes,
like, where did you get that knowledge from,
yes,
So,
I've heard people talk about that. I don't remember the name of the people, like maybe Enoch on the not the Enoch that went to heaven, but the other
yeah.
Enoch, right on his side.
Hmm. Yep.
I've heard that. Yeah, so a couple places like I wanted to mention sons of God being mentioned is like I said, Job 2:1. It talks about like Satan coming, he's basically presents himself with the sons of God. I talked about it earlier, Job 38, just so you guys know what verses there were. There was Job 38, 4-7, where it says, when the morning stars sang together and the sons of God shouted for joy. This is when God laid the foundations of the earth. And then Daniel 3:25 is where you're going to find Son of God. And it's interesting that it says it looked like the Son of God, right? So that's where you'll find that.
The son
Any
of God.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
was when it was a Meshach and Abednego were in the fire, and it says that it says I'll read it real quick. It's something that when I was reading, I was like, wow, it doesn't even say a son of God; it says the Son of God. Uh, Look, he answered, I see four men loose walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. So this is the Son of God, which I believe is Jesus,
Yep.
that was in the fire, saving them from the flames, right? So
Hmm.
interesting stuff. But yeah, I see in the Old Testament anywhere that when sons of God are mentioned, it's called Benai Elohim, and it's always speaking, referring to angels, or I think right there it's referring to the Son of God, which would be Jesus, right? Um,
Yeah,
any
that's
any
a
que-
distinct difference.
any questions on any of that stuff that I was going over?
No, I didn't even know that about the Esau, and the way you expanded on Sodom and Gomorrah right there is a little informative. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, that gives me, yeah, just opened up a whole nother door.
Well,
Yeah,
because
just go.
you're told your whole life, it's like, oh, they destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because all these gay dudes.
Yeah, that's all you're
That's
told, pastors.
hmm
And then another thing, another thing you could think about is the Tower of Babel. What was happening there? Were they just trying to build a tower to heaven? And is that it? You go to extra biblical text. It's talking about them building like it was way bigger than what the kind of what you would get out of the Bible. But that's another thing. Like what was happening there? Some people think that that they were trying to get up to heaven because they were trying to get to the angels to have them, do the same thing. They're trying to entice the angels. They could send a bunch of virgins to the top of that tower and try to see if they could get them to entice again. And in biblical cosmology, I do believe that, excuse me, I do believe that the angels could be the stars. That could be why they were trying to get up there. There's different thoughts on that, but the Tower of Babel's another one where God gets involved. Later, if you go to Joshua 10 through 12, or 10 verse 12, I talk about this in biblical cosmology where God stopped the moon and the sun from moving, right? That right there, who was Joshua fighting against? They were fighting against the Amorites, and the Amorites are a giant tribe. The king of Bashan, you guys have probably heard of him before, Og, the king of Bashan. So God gets involved yet again. Every time you see God getting involved, it has to do something with the giants or something that's going to change human history forever, right? So one of those events obviously is Genesis 6:4, when the sons of God took the daughters of men, and they bore children, which were giants. God, what did he do? He brought the flood. And then when you go a little bit further, you see the Tower of Babel right away after the flood in Genesis 10. And you see that the Lord spoke to the Lord and to come down and stop the Tower of Babel from happening, babble the languages, and then also or confound the languages. And then also you see that in Sodom and Gomorrah, and then you see it in Joshua 10, where he actually stopped the moon and the sun from moving, right? You're seeing that when God gets involved, most of the time it has to do with the Nephilim or something like that happening. That's
Hmm.
going to change the DNA. That's
Yeah, a
going to do
threat to the
something that's,
DNA almost, the lineage.
yes, exactly. So that's what, to me, like as you're reading the book of Genesis, you start finding out like, wow, you see all these giant tribes that are mentioned, the Horites, the Pizzites, and all these different ones, and you're like, okay, that's what it seems to be. It seems to be like God is trying to wipe out the men, women, and children of these tribes, and he's continued doing that. And what it is it's a even though that the evil happened, God still uses it for good, because what do you see in you see David, right? What does David do? He slays Goliath, right? So that ends up being, and that is where the Messiah's line came through. So ultimately, you see uh, the Amorites being destroyed, all these things happening, and then God uses it for good by David taking out Goliath, and then that's how he became a mighty king, right? And that's where the people were begging for David to become king because he took out Goliath. So this chess match is happening throughout the Bible, and you're seeing it happen, and you're like, okay, wow. And then obviously when it gets to that point, that's when you see David actually slaying Goliath, which is going to be like a Raphaim, and you see David becoming king, and then it goes through from there.
Do you think God always intervenes in these types of situations because of maybe he feels that we were weak-minded enough at the beginning to be tempted, right? Eve was enough to be tempted by the serpent, so he knows that maybe that same lineage can easily tempt again.
Hold on, really quick. Let me plug my. I see I didn't plug my computer in. I don't want it to go out. Sorry about that.
Yeah, all
Um,
good.
Okay. So you said, well, I think that God gets involved. You see God getting involved when it comes to the giants, because people, they doubt themselves. Like it's kind of the same thing. Like let's say you were like back in the day when I used to party, like I was small stature, right? But I was like, but I didn't mind fighting some big guy, right? But when you like sometimes when you see a big guy, you start getting intimidated, especially probably when you see a giant. But God is saying, I'm with you. So go into that land and take out the men, women, and children of that tribe. And the people have doubts. They doubt themselves. I mean, God sees that. You even
Hmm.
see that. You even see that when you go to Numbers 13:33, where they're saying, watch, I'll kind of read here. We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak, which are giants. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, giants. The Jebusites, giants. And the Amorites, which are the king of Bashan, dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell in the sea along with the banks of Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go at once and take the possession, for we all are able to overcome it." Just a side note, my middle name is Caleb, so Joshua Caleb, right? So I was named after Caleb and then Joshua, so which is a blessing. But anyways, let's keep going. But the men who had gone with them said, "We are not able to go up against the people. We are stronger than they are stronger than we." And they gave the children of Israel a bad report to the land which they have spied out, saying, "The land uh, through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw are men of great stature. There we saw giants. The descendants of Anak came for the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in their own sight, so that we were in so we were in their sight." So what it's saying is, and God didn't even tell him to send spies there. God said to just go there, and I have your back, so don't worry about it. So that's why Caleb was like, we're just gonna go. But people, men, they say, hey, we're going to send spies out first to check out the land. And when they saw these sons of Anak and all these different giant tribes, they're like, hey, we ain't going back there. These things are big. They're huge. Now, are they so big that they're just like grasshoppers to them? That's probably maybe like a metaphor. I don't think that they were that big, but I don't know. But uh, I think they were using it as like, hey, like trying to tell them like, hey, we're like grasshoppers in their sight, so that they're more scared, so they don't have to go and fight. But God was telling them that I'm with you, so don't worry about it. Let just go into the land. I'll make sure that you take it over. So
Yeah, he in the Joshua wars too, right? Isn't that they talk when they're fighting the Canaanites that they're like at the bottom of the hill and they're at the top and they're the same size, you
yeah,
know, looking through
yeah.
the valley at them.
Which is that's what I'm seeing. It's interesting. And then I'll go to Joshua 10:12 real quick. Let me just go in the Bible real quick because I almost have that verse memorized because I've done it so many times.
Nice.
The Joshua.
It is like
Uh,
you say though, they sent a spy too in those Joshua wars at first when we went there, and then they looked at him and went, "Oh, we can't fight those guys."
exactly. And that's where it's yeah. So therefore the five kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem. Yeah. So let me keep going. Joshua 10 is so then the Lord routed them before Israel, killed them with a great slaughter of Gibeon, chased them along the road and goes to the Beth of Paran and struck them down as far as Azekah and Mazekah. And it happened as they fled before Israel and were the descendants of Beth Horon, the Lord cast down large hailstones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones of the children of Israel killed with the sword. You see, God is getting involved. You see that? They're fighting against giants and God is bringing hailstones on them, right? So if once you have faith in me, you're going to see I'll take care of you, right? So then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. So the Amorites, which before when I used to read biblical cosmology, before I read the book of Genesis myself, I didn't realize that the Amorites were the king of Bashan because I used to, when I read the Old Testament, I would just read it all the way through, and me and my wife would read together, and I wasn't sitting there like concentrating on these certain things that I've learned. That's why it's important because what it does is when you learn this stuff, it's not good to just focus on it. Like I did it a lot, but it is good to know. So when you read it, brings the Bible alive. So now when I read this story and I see God sending hailstones on these people, I'm like, how come God is not doing that with other people? How come it only happens in Joshua or it happens in Sodom and Gomorrah? Well, the reason why is because they're dealing with giants. It says the Lord delivered the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, sun stand still over Gibeon and the moon in the valley of Ajan. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped till the people had avenged upon their enemies. So this is so important. And it actually says this is not written in the book of Joshua, which it is, right? This is so important to God that he actually stops the sun and the moon from moving so that they can avenge their enemies. So what is that doing? The people that are fighting in the battle are seeing hailstones getting thrown on these giants. And also they say the moon and the sun stop. They're like, okay, dude, God is with us.
Yep.
And God is showing them, right? And that's why it brings the Bible alive. If you just saw that it was just some kind of tribe called the Amorites and got it, and then the children of Israel fighting against them, first of all, you'd be like, man, that's not fair. Why would God do that to these people?
Children.
That's why
Yeah.
that's why all these atheists come and talk and be like, hey, look at this. Your God is destroying men, women, and children of a tribe. That's disgusting. And that's why they have all these talking points because they don't understand the story and the narrative of what's going on throughout the Bible. So if you were just a regular audience and reading this And let's say you're just the type of person that skips through the Bible and you're like, hey, I want to read the book of Joshua now. Oh, let me check the book of Mark. Oh, let me just do, Ezekiel. Once you read through the Bible, you're going to realize all these things connect. And this is the type of story that I think it's good for you to know the backdrop, that Genesis 6 conspiracy, which is Gary Wayne. Once you learn all that kind of information, and then you go into the Bible, it literally brings the Bible alive to you in a way where because when you start making connections, you're like, oh,
I
the
agree.
Amorites,
It
you know?
it puts you in it, you know. It's exactly like you said. You're not, because you don't even understand some of the words, you know, or the descriptions and things like that. So if you're
feel
not
like,
really
yeah,
paying
when you
attention,
study it out, like I feel like you do hop between versions, right? Like I have to go look at the like words I understand, not Shakespeare. You know, like
yeah,
Oh yeah, I think it is good to do that too. Like, I do that. I read the New King James when I'm reading on the show, but I do go back to like the Strong's Concordance, and then I do switch versions too, just to kind of see what they're saying
like,
here, what they're
is that
saying there.
really what they're saying? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yes, all right. Like, that's
it
yeah,
is. I agree. It puts
100%.
you in it though, you know, when you start to understand the context of it. It's no longer just a war.
Yes, it's a war that to where God is trying to take out that DNA. So
Hmm.
later, when Jesus is born, it's all connects to basically the Messiah coming. Jesus being born, right? That's what's happening. God's trying to take out that DNA because before the flood, that DNA it was rampant. It was so rampant that the only one that had perfect genealogy was Noah, and that's
Yep.
what God says when He says He's perfect in His generations. Before the flood, what it says is that Noah is perfect in his generations. So that what that means is perfect in his DNA. And it doesn't mean that he was perfect like Jesus. No, it means he's perfect in his genealogy. So
Yeah.
that's why God was like, okay, I'm gonna roll with him and have it, and everything that happened on the ark and all that stuff. When it says that,
Yeah. Noah got drunk all the time, you know. Nobody's perfect.
yeah, well, besides the fact, as soon as he lands the boat, he builds a vineyard and he
Yep.
starts to get drunk right away, So and then some crazy thing happened there too. But that verse is going to be, if you guys are interested, is Genesis 6 verse 9. It says, "This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man," which means that he was a good man, right? It means he was, even though he did get drunk, it says he was a just man. So um, perfect in his generations.
so was he
That
just in his celebrations though? I mean, no,
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, well, like I said, I think God he understands that everybody has, and then also like Noah didn't have like the Holy Bible to read, right? So Noah doesn't have a Holy Bible where you can read and find out, hey, be sober, be vigilant. The devil's like a roaring lion waiting to pounce. Spiritual battle, Ephesians 6:12. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Noah is like he gets
Let
to
him
speak to
mind.
God, you know. But yeah, it's like a first-hand account from God. It's different. Like he's able to speak to God. He's hearing God speak to him. So he doesn't have like a moral compass like we should have, because if he's getting drunk, like he's just a man back then that, going on. It says that the Lord saw that there was wickedness of man that was great in the earth, and every intent, the thoughts of his heart was evil continuously. And the Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, right? So think about that. The people before the flood, every thought was evil continuously. So Noah was probably seeing people getting murdered, slaughtered, raped, all these things happening. So when he gets off the boat and he drinks, a couple things of wine, he's probably not like, oh, I'm a super bad person
No,
compared to
yeah,
what was
he's
going
he's
on.
like he's like, wow, I need a drink. Yeah. That's
Exactly,
crazy.
dude. So
It's
yeah, go
it
ahead.
what a so like the Nephilim were born of the sons of man who came down with daughters, right?
Yeah.
So the sons of man, are they held accountable too? Like the Nephilim are destroyed in the flood. What about the sons of man who bore those Nephilim?
So sons of God went into the daughters of men. So the,
Okay,
the
there
sons
you go.
of
Sons
God
of
were,
God.
yes, it's okay. The sons of God, yeah, it says in the book of Enoch that they were, that they were locked into the earth, and also says it in the book of Jude. Um, I'll go over that really quick. So Jude is Jesus's brother, so people know. So we should take this seriously, right? So Jude 1, 5 through 7, I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this, how that Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. And that right there is talking about the angels that came down and had sex with women, right? And that word okatarian or that word habitation is actually okatarian. So they shed their okatarian, which is their heavenly body, came down, and they committed this sinful act. So okatarian is like their heavenly body, right? Like the way I can explain that is like on the Mount Transfiguration when Jesus was speaking to Moses and Elijah, they said that Jesus was glowing, right? So okatarian. Now there's different things about this. Like personally, I think uh, if you do think that angels are stars and you see them changing into different colors, it's like looks like a diamond, looks like a emerald, it looks like sapphire, right? So that could be an okatarian. That could be when they come down, they shed their okatarian. But anyways, all I want to say is they shed their okatarian, which is like their heavenly body. Now, and then it continues. It says, He hath reserved an everlasting change under darkness unto the judgment of the great day, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and over to strange flesh. That's the part I was talking about. That means not human. And are set forth, for example, suffering the vengeance of. Um, okay, so what I want to say there is notice that when he's talking about these angels, he's also goes immediately into Sodom and Gomorrah. That's another reason why I think it's he's connecting these fallen angels, and then he actually starts going into Sodom and Gomorrah and talking about how they're going after strange flesh. That's another reason why maybe you could think that the second incursion happened there. But we'll go back. What happened to these angels that sinned? He hath reserved an everlasting chains under darkness in the judgment of the great day. So that's where they're located. They're actually going to be located in the earth. And in Second Peter, I think it is. 2 Peter 2 verses 4 through 11 is where he's talking about where the angels are, right? I have a cold too, so sorry, man. My voice is like going out a little bit, but I'm
All
trying my
good.
best here.
All good. You're crushing it.
And I just did a show last night till like 12 o'clock. So, all
Oh,
right,
yeah.
here we
We
go.
we had Brandon Kroll on last night too. So,
Oh, dude, Brandon comes on. It's like at least a 2.5 hour
oh
show.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so sorry that there's a dog barking too. Okay, Second Peter 2 verses 4 through 11. It says, For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell or to Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of the 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes. Another thing you see, Peter does the same thing. He goes from talking about the angels that sin into Sodom and Gomorrah now, right? Turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, condemning them for destruction, making them an example for those afterward who live ungodly, and delivered righteous Lot, who was oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. So that right there tells you that for if God did not spare the angels who sinned, that's speaking of the ones in Genesis 6, but cast them down to hell or Tartarus. That's another word you could use, the abyss, right? That's where they're at. They're in Tartarus, to be reserved for judgment, right?
So
So go ahead.
so he essentially took these angels and made them watch him kill their children.
He took these angels and he put them in Tartarus. They're in chains, so they can't go anywhere. So, and
Yeah.
they're actually, since they're in the earth, that means that they're not outside of space and time. So that this is a punishment for them to show that if you ever do this again, you come down and have sex with these women, I'm going to make sure that you're stuck in chains. And excuse me, also your children are not going to be savable. If you go to the book of Enoch, I'm not saying that this is canon, but the book of Enoch says that the Nephilim that died in the flood, the disembodied spirits are actually what demons are today. So, so not only that, if you see, he's trying to warn them that if you do this, I will put you in chains of darkness in the earth, and you'll be locked in earth, right? So it was obviously a abomination to God, and they disrespected God. They came down because if you look like in the Bible, you see that angels were able to come down more often back then. Now God was like, all right, I can't have that really happen unless it's a controlled environment. Like when he sent them down for Sodom and Gomorrah, who did they come with? They came with the Lord, right? So if you see Abraham talking to the Lord, you see that it's kind of like a controlled environment more than just having angels speaking to humans. So I don't know where I was going there, but yeah, we'll keep going. I can't
Mhm.
remember where I was going there.
No, no, it's all good. I was asking, what the Nephilim were punished, but
Oh yeah. Okay.
destroyed, but the people who created them, why weren't they?
Yeah. So the ones that like the daughters were they well they were yeah because the flood happened, right? So ultimately they were destroyed, right? And so was their family and everything. And like you said, the angels were in the earth. And then what does it say about Jesus, right? It says that when Jesus died on the cross, he went down and he preached to the spirits. Some people believe that's in Peter, right? And some people believe that he went and preached to those angels that sinned. Some people believe that he went down to uh, Abraham's bosom and preached to those people to give him a chance to repent. So there's two different things on that. But hold on, let me find out what that is. Man, I can't remember where that's located. Jesus preached to spirits in prison.
Hmm.
That's gonna be First Peter 13:18 through 20. Let's go there real quick. First Peter, because it actually goes along with everything we're talking about here. It's really interesting, but it's just stuff that it's just stuff that you don't really you don't really understand unless you know this story of what's happening here, you know? Um okay, so it's gonna be I'm on First Peter 3:18 through 20. So all right, so it says we'll start at verse 18. For Christ also suffered once for sins. He just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive by the Spirit, by whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison who formerly were disobedient. Then, once the divine longsuffering waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 souls, were saved through water. So he's saying that Jesus went down and he preached to the spirits that are in prison. That could be the angels that were in prison. You could take it that way. Maybe he's preaching to them, saying, "Hey, everything you tried to do, well, hey, I just redeemed everybody, right?"
Did you say 8 souls?
It says 8 souls. Yeah, it says once the long suffering. Yeah, it's talking about Noah,
Okay.
his family, right? His four three sons, him, and then the four wives.
I wrote it just popped out to me because I wrote a note before this that in the book of Enoch, in the first Enoch, chapter 6 through 16, it describes the angels who did these acts, and there's 8 of them that are imprisoned.
Oh
So
wow,
that
very
taught like
interesting.
that taught the forbidden knowledge, the Azazel, Semyaza, Irma, Emiramis, Baraquil, Kokobil, Chezekiel, Shamziel, and Serial. It gives all 8. So I don't know. It just brought it up to me. I was like, oh wow.
To few that is 8 souls were saved through water. Yeah, interesting, and that's crazy because eight souls were saved, and there was
Yeah.
8 angels that maybe did that. Yeah, I've heard 200, like 200, but the 8 were like the main one. The agitator
Mm-hmm.
is the one that actually caused it, but there's a lot, but that whole thing is interesting. And also when you kind of study the Luke 16, where this is off subject, but when talking about the rich man and Lazarus, that's interesting too because they go to Abraham's bosom and that's in the earth, right? And you see a chasm between them. So Jesus could maybe have gone down and preached to the spirits in prison, maybe the ones that were in not Abraham's bosom, not paradise, but the other side, right? Which would be Sheol. Maybe he went down and preached to them, or he maybe went down and preached to the angels that were in prison, right?
Why not
That
all
could,
of it?
yeah, yeah. It just those little parts that are mentioned in the Bible, I'm telling you, some people probably skip right over that, and they might even think that just talk about Jesus going to preach to someone that's in prison on earth, not
Yes.
even thinking about going into the earth. You see, and it's
Hmm.
like that doesn't make sense to you unless you know certain things, that are throughout the Bible. So
And
let's
folks,
get
this is why we got Josh Monday here and there.
yeah, and I'm just and honestly, I'm just a person, that I just the good thing is I started the show and then I got to learn so much about the conspiracy aspect of it that now when I teach the Bible, I have different kinds of things in my tool belt. That's all it is. And then you make a lot of different connections. But I think right here when I was talking about Second Peter 2 verses 4 through 11, that's when I was talking about he did not spare the angels who sinned. Um, you could tell he's referring to Genesis 6 because he connects it to Noah. There's a negative, and then the positive happened in negative. Then the positive, Peter encourages people with well-known stories that godly people understand, like Genesis 6. Yeah, so when Peter's talking about these stories, the people that he's speaking to, his audience, they already know what's going on with Genesis 6. They don't need someone like me to come and tell them what happened, like they don't need me to try to tell you something because you've heard the Sethite story. Like Peter obviously is speaking about this situation like as if all the audience already knows. Uh, Also, hell is this is not Tartarus. It's the same hell we think of. It's more like a pit inside the earth that were chained. Okay, so I have that in my notes. We talked about the 5 king, 4 king war. The people that were involved in that were uh, so the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Adad, and then Zebium, and then Zor. So, and then if you read that, if you guys want to get into that, it's Genesis 14, 1 through 16. That's the battle that took place. You're going to see that the Raphaim were fighting next to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? They were like with them. And the way that Gary Wayne explained it is it almost seemed like the giants would surround them to help them fight. And they were like, they were with them because maybe I don't know. Is that did they get created through the land of Sodom? I don't know. You know, there's a lot
Um,
to it.
you said so there's the description of them being the disembodied spirits after that, right? And if you look back in like history time, and I throw a little weirdness in here on it, the Large Hadron Collider, right? The one CERN. There's multiples of them all over the world, but the Large Hadron one on the Swiss and French border is supposedly buried on like Abaddon's
Yep.
ritual burial sites. And then if you think about like the bottomless pit, and CERN creating these portals, or if they can shed their Okateri and
Yep.
things like that, can they get it back? Can they leave and come back? Did they protect themselves, from a flood by being able to do that?
Well, are you talking about the Nephilim or are you talking
Yeah.
about the? Oh,
Any
yeah.
all of that, if they have those powers, why weren't they able to just leave?
Well, I don't think the Nephilim had those powers. The Okatarian would be like the fallen angels. The
Okay.
angels shed their Okatarian. So we're trying to get a heavenly body. That's what we're trying to do. The angels, they shed theirs just to come down. And these women were
They
probably
can't get it
beautiful.
back.
Uh well, they get it back when they come in human form, they shed their Okatarian, right? And then they come here and they do what God wants them to do, and then they go back to heaven and get their heavenly body. Them, they can't get it back. Now they're in the earth and they're in chains of darkness. That's what it says. So those now the Nephilim, it doesn't say that they shed their Okatarian. They don't have a heavenly body. They're just here on earth, and then they died. And then
Okay.
if you go to extra biblical text, which is the Book of Enoch, it says that those spirits of the Nephilim were disembodied spirits. That's what the demons are today. But the Bible doesn't say that. So, but people that Jewish history, that's what they believed, and the people that wrote the Book of Enoch, obviously they it's not Enoch that wrote it. It's something. It was after Enoch, right? So now, did it come from Enoch? I don't know. I know that in the Ethiopian Bible, Book of Enoch is there, and I'm not a expert on the Book of Enoch. I don't read it though as if it's canon because I don't know if it is, and I don't want to read something
Yeah.
that's as if it's canon if it's not. But it's still good to read because obviously the people back then read it because it's mentioned, right? It's quoted, in the book of Jude. So I just want to say that, yeah, it's very just an interesting read, but I think it's good finding out how the people talked back then, finding out like they try to put a microscope on the giants, right? And they were saying things that could be true and could not, like how tall they were. Like some of them were like 300 feet tall. If you do the math,
Hmm.
that's gigantic, right?
That's huge.
And there's just things in there that I don't know if it's 100% accurate. The Bible is more speaking about giants, big in stature, mighty warriors. Gabrim is, I think, the word. It's just different, you know. It's I think the Bible is speaking of large stature, big
Hmm.
like giants. Yeah,
Yeah, bunch
but
of
they're
shit.
not.
Right?
I don't see them being as
Eating
big yet.
animals.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
say
yeah,
eating it, and you know, I don't see that as like being some massive, not like picking up a cow and swallowing it. You know, I see it as like, you know, biblical people were small in stature that they
yeah,
talk about. You know, they ate berries and things like that. You know, and fish. But
yeah,
you know, these giants were big men. They probably had, you know, a big tomahawk steak. And it's like,
yeah,
whoa, would you eating
yeah,
somebody's
yeah, yeah.
leg or something? You know that.
Yeah, yeah. And even like the different tribes, like the Indian tribes, they were talking about, you know, that they saw like there was giants in the land too, like the Indians were talking about, and they said that, you know, that's why they say how, because they want to see if you have 5 fingers or 6 fingers. That's one of the things that they say is the
Oh
reason why
yeah.
they say that. So it's interesting, man. And it's interesting when you see the different cultures and stuff where this stuff is mentioned, a flood is mentioned, and a lot of the stuff that the Bible actually says as well. Um, so one thing that people try to use with the sons of God, like, oh well, it says here in Matthew 22, Jesus answered and said to them, "You are mistaken, knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor given in marriage, but are like angels of God in heaven." So some people would say, well, angels can't marry. Look, it says it right here. But as you see in the context, God is talking about the angels that are in heaven. They're not getting married. That's not their purpose. But when they shed their Ocatarian and come down to the earth, that's a total different story, right? So that's one of the verses that someone might use to try to counter what I was talking about. We kind of already went over Sodom and Gomorrah.
What about can you touch a little more on the what'd you call it? Rephilim?
The Raphaim,
Rephaim, yes.
yeah. So that's more like what David versus Goliath. Goliath would be more like a Raphaim. You see that he's, you know, if you do it in if you do it in like royal cubits, then he would be a little taller, like 15 feet tall. If you do it in like the regular cubits, then he'd be like 9 feet tall, right? So the Raphaim would be like shorter in stature, is what Gary Wayne would say. I'm not like an expert on that area, but as you see, like Goliath would be like a Raphaim, right? The Philistines. He had 5 brothers, and they were giants, right? That's why, you know, it talks about David versus Goliath. But Raphaim would be the giants after the flood. The Nephilim would be the giants before the flood. Supposedly, the Nephilim were bigger in stature. The ones
Okay.
after the flood were a little bit smaller in stature and not as big as the ones before the flood.
So carrying some of the DNA is the same, or
Uh, well, yeah, that DNA was through their line, obviously, because God is concentrated on killing all the men, women, and children. So somehow it came through. You know, somehow the DNA came through. I'm not sure how. Some people also speculate that the giants went into the earth when the flood happened, some of them, and then came out. And there's just different theories on that. And the Bible doesn't explain it exactly how, like I said, people speculate on second incursion, but, and then also, like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard anybody say this, but some people try to say that in the book of Genesis, like when Eve ate the forbidden fruit, that she had sex with the serpent or whatever. You know, that's something some people try to use and try to say that Cain was the Satan's serpent seed or whatever. But
wow,
you
that's
know,
a I've never even heard
some
that.
people say that it's called serpent seed. It's some people say that, but if you notice, the punishment was God punishes them when angels do that. You know, then the devil would have been put in the bottomless pit like these angels, right? So if you ever hear that, someone comes on your show, and also it says that Cain came from God. It says that actually in the book of Genesis, like God gave us a son, he came from the Lord, right? So that couldn't be, God's not gonna. What Lord are you talking about? You know, it's talking about the Lord, not talking about the devil, right? So if anybody comes on your show to say that, you can always say, hey, well, it says that Cain came from God, right? And also, what did God do to the angels that sinned? Well, he put him in a bottomless pit, right?
Do
So,
you? Oh, I just lost my question. It went right out my head. Never mind.
all right, we were talking about the angels that sinned. I don't know if it had anything to do with that.
She gone. Oh,
She's gone.
um, so like the elites now today, right? Freemasonry. Okay, so the Nephilim and all of that kind of area was forbidden knowledge, right? The sharing of forbidden knowledge in exchange for the sons of or the daughters of man. Um, do you think that's kind of like Freemasonry, Masons and things like that? Is that a goal of their teaching? Are they searching for maybe some old Nephilim knowledge? Because it
Uh,
seems like Freemasons are, at the top, and then they're the weird ones, and it's always like the occult symbolism that seems to tie into sort of Nephilim stuff, old ritual type things. But
yeah. Yeah, like they're chasing that knowledge. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
think yeah, like Gary Wayne would be great. Like Enoch would be like the son of Cain, would be like where that seven sacred sciences come from, and where they're trying to tap into that. And I think that these the Freemasons are like at the top on a level where we're like maybe governmental and stuff like that. Yeah, but the people on top, like when you really study too, is like the would be like the black nobility, like where these are the ones that are the families that continue to just have wealth throughout the years, and they're
The
all running stuff.
Rothschilds, yeah.
Well, the Rothschilds, even if you look at the Rothschilds, they're like blue blood, so they're like half royal and half not, right? Even if you go higher up, like Rothschilds would be like they're the ones that we actually know about that are like these bankers, these international bankers that like that's somebody that we'll chase that down and be like, oh, these are the ones on top. But even as you keep on digging, right, you just keep on going. You're like, what? Who are these? Who are these black nobility? Like, even if you go to like King Charles, right? You kind of just go down his line, and if you look in the black nobility, it's gonna be like you're gonna be like your head's gonna spin because you're gonna start going into like pulling up the bloodlines of these people, and it's kind of like what Gary Wayne gets into, But it's really crazy when you look it up. Like, it just is it's fascinating because you'll see these certain coats of arms and certain things where it's telling you like where these things are going, and there's like different names like Orsini, for example. That's one where people, when they look into the Jesuits, they're like, okay, the Jesuits, these are the ones in charge. And then some people look in the Freemasons, say these are the ones in charge. The Knights of Malta, all these different things, these are the ones in charge. But as you keep going, you keep on finding these different names, and the Orsini's is one that you could kind of look up if you guys want to. And they say that he's the gray pope, above the black pope, above the white pope, and
I was
and
gonna say, yeah, popes have got to be like on the list a lot on that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
Yes.
you see like the Borgia, which would be a lot of popes that you see. There's just different names that you see, like as far as in Italy, and then like when you go to different there's like the Hatfields. There's a whole bunch of different tribes that are not tribes, but black nobility that you look through, and you're like, okay, these families are intertwining with each other, keeping the royalty line, and even though we think that they're not ruling today, it just seems like they are. That a lot of these families that are in the background that we don't get to hear about unless you are really digging. And
I'd be I'd be
The
curious to see how many were like involved with technology, like
yeah,
the quantum computing. That's what I wanted to ask you about. Like AI, right? They use these quantum computers, but they use them on like a level where they run on multiple existing planes at the same time.
yeah, yeah.
And
So very interesting. Yeah,
um like one of the founders of a company which is D-Wave, which used like some of the original quantum computing, he he claimed, I think his name was Gordy. He claimed that they were getting the information from like a non-human entity.
yeah.
So, and
Yeah,
then
so intelligence, right? So that's what intelligence is, like what a demon is. Like that's a way you could interpret it from the Greek. It was like it would be like intelligence, right? So that's what it is. It's like and then artificial, right, would be just like a body that you could put this intelligence into, right? So yeah, it's there's my friend wrote a book on it. I can't remember what its name, but it's David Beverly, and he's really smart about AI because he works in the computer industry. I could shout out his book real quick. Go ahead, keep on going while I'm looking this up.
Yeah, so you start looking it up and they tell you all this stuff, but they don't really have like the information of how they're getting it, you know. It's like, oh, we've programmed this to do that. But like I can turn on AI right now and it Matt and I were talking about this last night. You don't have to give it like an emotion or an attitude or anything, but somehow it knows like what you want. You could just type in a plain give me a breakdown of the color red and it'll come back, you know, in like my style and my explanation of red, you know, and it's like I didn't ask you to do any of that though, so why are you feeding me?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's yeah, and even if you ask like Chat GPT, which I don't talk to Chat GPT. My friend was sitting there with me, and he was like, "Hey, dude, have you heard of Chat GPT?" I'm like, "Yeah, I heard of it." And he's like, well, I was like, well, look up. I was like, just ask it like the five best family friendly places in like a place, right, and see what it tells you. And he's like, I'll look it up in San Jose. So he asked the five best family friend places. And the first thing that he gave them was a Rosicrucian museum. The next place he gave them was a science museum. So everything that he gives them, the best family friendly place to go is where? To church. That's where it is. None of it's going to be godly. I'll just put it that way. It talked about go to a Rosicrucian museum. It talked about going to an Egyptian museum. It talked about going to a science museum. Everything that has to do not with God, right? So I think that's pretty fascinating. Just randomly asking him that. The Coming Flood of AI: The Rise of the Nephilim Spirits is the book, and it's David Beverly Sr. If you look him up on YouTube,
okay.
it's Jesus Freak Computer Geek. He's really cool. He's been on my show, but he says the coming flood of AI, the rise of the Nephilim spirits. So what he's saying is that these AI are actually the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and they're actually demons. And what Michael was talking about is when you ask them these certain questions, what people would tell you is that's just the algorithm, like they know what you like. But we have a physical body of ourselves, right? Us, and then we have a digital form of us that's being recorded every single day that we don't know about. But the government does know about, and that's what they have. They have every single like that you've done, every comment that you've done, everything you've looked up on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever you're on. And there's a digital person of yourself, and they know exactly what you like, when you like it, what to advertise to you, and all that stuff. If you notice, so that digital form of yourself is something that AI wants to get to know, and it's just it becomes very fascinating. And if you see what they really want to do, I think in the future is try to create somebody that they want to make it so that you don't die, so that you can live in this physical world, and you could choose either to live eternally with God or you could choose to live on this earth forever. And obviously, God comes and does what he does in the book of Revelation for a reason. So that could be something where you could think, hey, are they trying to make us not in the image of God anymore? Are they trying to dwell into like Michael was talking about, like maybe the Nephilim stuff? Like if you notice, and even in Matthew 24, Jesus says like it'll be like the days of Noah, right? Which also goes along with this. It'll be like the days of Noah, right? In the future, right? When the tribulation, everything happens, depending on your eschatology.
Mm-hmm.
It being like the days of Noah, that's not just saying like, people are going to be marrying and it's going to be just like normal, but then all of a sudden Jesus is going to come. Like it's actually when the tribulation happens, it's going to be crazy, right? But it seems that maybe it could be like the days of Noah. And when you say that term to a Jew and they know exactly about Genesis 6:4 and the flood and they know all about that, they're going to be thinking about Nephilim or maybe about that happening. So maybe in the future, in the end times, this is just speculation, maybe there could be that happening. So it seems like when they're going into all these different lands like Syria, which is or Iraq and all these, it seems like maybe the government is trying to find, they said they found the tomb of I can't remember his name. There's a book about him, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like they found Gilgamesh's tomb, and they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to find. It seems like they're trying to mess with that. And then when you get into the UFO scene, that's another thing, right? They're trying to It's like a almost like a mobile fertility bank, you know, and it seems like these fallen angels, they can't have sex with human anymore, but now you could take a sperm from somebody in Japan and a sperm from and then an egg from someone in California and then try to make a baby, you know. So who
Yep.
knows what will be happening during the end times in the future, you know, but there's a lot to AI and we're actually the crazy thing about it for both of you, Matthew and Michael, if you guys notice, there's a lot of Christians that are like backing Trump, right? And thinking that Trump is, you know, going to do so good for us and everything. But who did he immediately bring in right away? He brought in Elon Musk. So now you have Elon Musk, who is like trying to bring the AI and trying to bring all this stuff. And what it is, all of us are like basically it's it's like it's problem action solution, right? So they create a problem, they make you
Mm-hmm.
beg for the solution, and it's the solution that they want you to beg for anyways.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening, right? So I think it's like Trump and Elon Musk are like a honeypot, and
In
they're just
his inauguration, he stood there with announcing the Stargate
yep.
project or whatever, and it was literally
Uh,
like the top four tech giants of the world
you
that,
see,
yeah,
you see,
produce like
yeah.
modified RNA, and things like that. It's like, okay,
Yeah, and that's everything that somebody like us should not want. Like we don't want that. We don't want AI. We don't want all this stuff. But what Trump did is he got into office and now everybody was begging for Trump to be in office, right? Because they made some guy that was so bad that everybody was begging for Trump. And now Elon Musk kind of moved his way in where he's like, now they have you begging for Elon Musk because it's like, take over Twitter so we can have free speech. Cool, I'll do that for you, no problem. But now we're begging him, and now they're working together in unison with all these top, like you
yep,
said, AI and all these people. And now they're bringing in this beast system that Christians are actually literally begging for, right? It's just to me watching it is crazy, man. Like knowing certain things that we know, it's like,
they
I
want to
mean,
give AI vaccines now, and if the artificial intelligence, they're going to inject that into your body. It's like, if we've got these disembodied Nephilims within this artificial intelligence, why are we trying to tie that into ourselves?
yeah, and then like the Neuralink is basically
Mm-hmm.
like that's going to be some way for like these vessels to get like your body is a vessel, and the demons are looking for a way to get in, right? A channel, and the Neuralink, I believe, is a channel, and then the Neuralink is also kind of going off of what Jesus did, right? He healed the blind, he healed the sick, he healed the deaf, and the paraplegic. Well, that Neuralink that Elon Musk is making is supposed to heal the blind, the sick, the paraplegic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a middle finger to what Jesus did, and he's trying to act like he's going to bring this Neuralink in, which is actually a channel, I believe, for demons to go into your mind. And also, the devil's not able to read your mind right now yet. He's able to place thoughts in your mind, yes, but he's not able to actually read your mind and know what you are going to do. He's just able to tempt you.
Yep.
So once you put the Neuralink in your head, now he's able to actually see your thoughts. And that's what he's kind of waiting for. So if everybody on the entire earth had a Neuralink, first of all, you could die at any moment and they could send some way to kill you. But also, I think it's a way for the devil to, be omnipresent like he's trying to be.
Mm-hmm. Or, in the end times, you witness the event and the whole world can see it at one time. So it might have to be something like that to make it
Yeah.
happen. Also, speaking on the problem action solution, and you pointed TikTok, right? And TikTok went away for that little bit, and they're like, we're working with Trump. And then you look back and it was like 1 month before Trump's first presidency ended that he signed the bill making TikTok be banned in 4
Yep.
years. So it's like,
But
you
Yeah.
yeah,
set this up.
just
Yeah.
say TikTok.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you see that like it's the Hegelian dialectic, just all over again. That's really what it is. Like I don't know. I think we're on YouTube, so I don't want to talk about it too much about the vaccine and all that stuff. But you see what they did. They create a problem and they make you beg for the solution, and the solution is actually what they want you to do anyways. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's happening. And we just have to, as Christians, we need to be mindful and be watching and know that uh, you know these elites are not here for our best interest, whether they try to tell you that they're Christian or not. Are they walking with God? Are they putting God first? Are they mentioning that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior? That Jesus died on the cross, rose again, like Corinthians 15 verses 1-4 says? Are they trying to push you towards that? Or are they just sprinkling what they're talking about with a little Bible and make you think that they're Christian? But are
Mm-hmm.
they walking with the Lord? Are they depending on the Lord? Is Donald Trump literally praying?
Is he accepting that he's a
When
sinner?
yeah,
Because
when he
he said,
speaks,
I have no reason to repent.
exactly. And when he speaks of God, he has to look at notes. Like I saw him in a church before, he's looking at notes. That man does not have a teleprompter, but when he speaks of God, he has to look at notes because there's some pastor wrote it for him, right? So because he's not speaking that naturally, because it's not coming to him naturally, like me and you could speak about God, because he doesn't. That's just an area that he's not obviously involved in. So he has to try to. All he's trying to do is just honeypot all these Christians, right? To bring him into the beast system that's coming down the road. Is he the Antichrist? I'm not saying that he's the Antichrist, but he is definitely maybe
Yeah.
bringing in that, right? So just be
If you
careful.
look at the rest of the world, even if he's nobody, he's in charge while shit's going sideways. You
Yeah,
know,
and yeah, he's looked upon uh by Christians. That's the thing, man. All those people that didn't fall for COVID and all that stuff. Well, he's a honeypot for those people.
mm-hmm.
Like, hey, they didn't fall for it this time. Well, let's put them back around again and try to gather them up. And obviously, they all fell for it. And now, whatever he says, well, I'm going to get you guys a vaccine for cancer now.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I don't want to get cancer. Heck no. All right, let's do it. So now
Yep.
he's trying to get all those people that didn't fall for all that stuff, and now they're on the train. Most of them, not everybody. And now he still wants to gather those people. So all the ones that
Illusion
are,
of choice. All illusion of
or
choice.
to say Christ or God saved Trump.
yeah,
You
oh yeah,
know,
that, yeah,
God sent his own son to torture and die. He didn't save
yeah,
Trump.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
dude
yeah.
was just a bad shot.
Oh yeah, or you could think about it even deeper. Like who
Yeah.
knows if that was just a plant? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just awkward. That was weird, bro. The way that the
That's
Secret Service handled that to me when I saw that, I was
they
like,
look like a
"There's
bunch
no
of
way, bro."
actors, right?
Yeah, there's no way, bro, because they wouldn't allow him to stand back up. Dude, you see when an actual assassination attempt happens, they take that person
Yeah, they
and they
swarm.
they swarm and they actually cover him with bulletproof vests and they walk him out and they don't allow at that point you ain't going to be able to control anything because we're trying to get you to safety. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? We're not trying to allow you to stand up, put your hand up because there could be 10 other shooters.
Yeah, you're the leader of the
Yeah,
free
you're
world.
not in charge at that point. It's not,
They must
"Oh,
have known that
hold
there was
on,
one
let me grab
shooter.
my shoe." Like,
Yeah,
no,
because
dude, come on.
and then I don't know if you guys okay, so if you're in war and there's a sniper, you don't know if there's one sniper, 10 snipers, 20 snipers. So you're gonna be, dude, isn't the Secret Service gonna be scared that they're gonna get shot? They must have known that there was only one shooter, or else they would, because they're gonna try to get off that stage, because you know that your life's on the line now. And they're trying to shoot who? The one that
Yeah.
you're covering. So
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna allow him to stand back up. Oh, hold on, let me get my shoes on. Hold on. And then he puts his hand up. Now, when he puts his hand up, he pauses. So if there is another shooter, boom, that's another
Yeah.
shot. So are they going to allow him to do that? I mean, we have to think logically as Christians, and we got to be awake, and we got to understand that we can't fall for these situations, man. We got to be vigilant, right? So
And they fed in what Grok XAI, right? That just released. It's like supposedly it's Elon Musk's AI. It's the most powerful,
it's
strongest
the
one in
good
the world
AI.
now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
it's the good one because Google's coming out with the evil one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. It's like, wow, dude. We're moving into and dude, even in the water industry, I work for water treatment, right? So even that is becoming more and more mechanical where you can move a valve here, you could turn on a pump here, you could do this, you could do that, all with just the computer, SCADA, right? So I can imagine everything that can happen digitally at this moment. They're trying to make it so that humans don't work. And then you're going to depend on the government like it's God, so they could just pay you a certain amount a month just to
Do you
keep you
feel
happy.
attacked? Do you feel attacked right now, Matt? Because that's exactly what you're doing at work for water treatment.
Right at work right now.
You do water treatment?
For the oil field, essentially.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
nice.
Like
Yeah, I
all I
work in
do
water
is pump
treatment.
it down into the ground. So I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. That's
It's big
awesome,
here.
man.
It's big in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, all right, well, we're at an hour and a half, bro.
Yes.
Give me some any other questions you guys have? While you guys are like thinking of some questions, I'm gonna go through my notes, see if I forgot anything.
No, I like that. So the last question I had, do you think like the Goliath bloodline, let's say, or something that had a little bit of hint lasted through to today?
Oh, like do I think that they're
Is there still a watered down
I don't
bloodline?
know. Interesting. The Committee of 300. That's one of the if you like look at they say like there's like the 13 families, which are like the main ones that are running the earth, the monastery. And then, like, if you look below that, there's like the Committee of 300, which are like they call themselves the Olympians. The Olympians were actually what the Greeks called giants, so the Olympians were giants. So, and if you hear the Rothschilds, they say that their bloodline comes through Nimrod. Nimrod became a Gibborim, which is like
Okay.
a mighty man. So there's a lot to it, but that's more like Gary Wayne's area of expertise, like he'll go over all the bloodlines and he'll track it all the way back. And yeah, so it seems like the Bible biblically says that the Amorites were the last of the giants and that God killed them, so
Mm-hmm.
that is God had them killed, right? So it seems like the Amorites were the last of that the people, and then they end up getting killed. So, but then you have Goliath. So I don't know. It's just a lot to it, man. And I personally don't know if that bloodline is still alive today, but it seems like God killed every man, woman, the children of that tribe, and that he wanted to get rid of that.
I
And
believe you could still just flow the corruption to, you don't need to be a Nephilim to invoke it, right? You can be
yeah.
fully corrupt.
Yeah, all you got to do is blaspheme the Holy Spirit, and then now you're if you know what that exactly is. Now, if you want to start a secret society, all you got to do is if you want to join and you want to be with us, you need to blaspheme the Holy Spirit so that you sold your soul basically, and now you're
Mm-hmm.
with the devil, and everything that you do, whether you feel like you're doing good or not, is going to be for him, and that's basically all you got to do for you to uh, you know, I'm not saying that you can blaspheme the Holy Spirit easily like that, but
Yeah.
I think that's part of the, selling your soul type deal.
Yep.
One thing we should know before we get off is if you read Psalms 81, 1 through 8, it's interesting because God stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods, little g gods, right? How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? So basically, God is saying that there's little g gods, which could be fallen angels, could be angels, whatever. He's saying that or they could be gods. I don't know. In history, there's a lot of different gods that are mentioned, and God is saying, "How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Salah, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, free them in the hand of the wicked." So I just want to say, if you read that Psalms 82, 1 through 8, it seems like there is fallen angels that are over cities. And even if you look in the book of Daniel, it says that he fought against the prince of Persia, who seemed to be like a fallen angel over the prince of Persia,
Yeah.
and he was fighting against a good angel. And then he had to call on Michael the archangel to come and help him. And then he went down to talk to Daniel. So there is entities over different countries, if that makes sense. And you see that.
Yeah.
So there's a physical and then there's a spiritual happening. And we got to make sure that we pay attention to both. Don't pay attention to just the physical. A lot of people get lost in the sauce with Trump and all this thing, but there's actually a spiritual entity that is behind what they are doing. And they're calculated making moves that we might not understand unless we are into the Bible daily and we continue reading. So I just
Yes.
suggest that you guys, all the people that are listening, just stay deep in your word and you'll see, all the things that we're explaining here. And just don't get stuck in like I did. I personally did get stuck in the book of Genesis for a long time because there's a lot of stuff action packed in there, but I was stuck on the creation and stuck on Genesis 6 so much because of my show. Because everybody that comes on wants to talk like that, but it's
Yeah,
good to read the
absolutely.
whole entire Bible to find out everything, if that makes sense.
Um, and that's how we'll end it. I think
Perfect.
that's a good thing to say, right? Stay in the word, you know, your spiritual armor. your spiritual
Yes.
sword. Those are the things that protect you. And Psalm 82, you said 1 through 8. I just wanted to say number 7, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. So
You see?
it will.
Yes. And also I think there was one more. Oh, I had another verse here. So Abel came in. Okay, and he passed beyond the brethren. I just want to make sure I don't leave this one. Yeah, it's all right. This other verse is Deuteronomy, but it's talking about I can read it real quick. It's one last thing we're gonna read before we go. Sorry.
Perfect.
Cut, and it has to do with that. I think the giants paste. It says, and then when he passed beyond the brethren, the descendants of Esau, who dwell in Seir, away from the road of the plain, away from Elath, Ezion, Gebar, we turned and passed way to the wilderness of Moab. And the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab, nor contend in the battle, for I will give you any of the land of possessions, because I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession. It says the Emim had dwelt in the times past, and a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. They are also regarded as giants like the Anakim, but the Moabites call them Emim. The Horites formerly dwelt in Seir, and the descendants of Esau disposed them and destroyed them before them, and dwelt in their place just as Israel did in the land of their possession the Lord gave them. So that'll just give you a couple tribes to kind of study: the Moabites, the Horites, the Hittites, and stuff like that, and the Anakim, right? So you can study those if you guys want. And they were regarded as giants, is what it says right there in the book of Deuteronomy.
Nice. Perfect. Um, Also, one last thing. You hear, Matt? Nephilim was before the flood, so I'm Rephilim for being tall, not Nephilim. You called me out in an
Gotcha.
earlier. Yeah. I don't have
I
no
know it's a
Nephilim
good
in
thing up, bro. I'm sorry.
me. All right,
Yeah.
man. Tell everybody where we can find you.
Excuse me. You can find me on YouTube at Josh Monday Music and Podcast. You can find my show on audio at Josh Monday Christian and Conspiracy Podcast, all the audio. And then if you go to Cult Conspiracy, there's Wednesday service and Sunday service. So if you go there, you'll see we got 25 episodes. The 25th will be released on Sunday. And then I got 8 episodes of Wednesday service so far. So that
Awesome.
is actually literally where I go from Genesis 1 all the way to Leviticus now in the Sunday service. And I went all the way through the book of Matthew, and now I'm on the book of Mark. So it's literally like having church, and I'm coming at it from a perspective of, because it's a conspiracy audience. I'm trying to come at it from a perspective for people like us that believe in conspiracies and also Christianity, right? So I do my
Yep.
best to do that. And so like I said, it'll be mostly biblical. And then once in a while, I can sprinkle a little bit of conspiracy in there. But I'm focusing on the Bible and what's biblical there. And it's just interesting, man,
Yep.
when you read through the Bible instead of just reading subject matters like, oh,
And
here's a subject here and there.
you're great at context of the Bible. So anybody listening, I highly suggest if you do read the Bible and you're like, oh, I did read it, but I don't really get it. Josh is very good at explaining what's going on at the time there. You got a lot
Thank
of
you.
experience and you know how to navigate the Bible.
Yeah,
All
go
glory
ahead.
to God.
Chronologically.
Yes, amen.
Yeah, all glory to God. But yeah, just like I said, all of us are just vessels. We're being used by God, and it's up to us whether we want to be used, and we go out there and do it. When the
Mhm.
opportunities arise, we could go and do it, and or you could just stay in your house and not do anything. But I think it's good to go out there and get it done. So that's what
Yep.
we're trying to do.
Well, that was another great episode. A little Bible knowledge on a Friday morning for everybody. A little Nephilim knowledge. The world's crazy. Doesn't matter who's in charge. Keep the word at heart. I'm your boy Michael.
Dime.
That was Josh, and we Figured It Out podcast. Join us for the next one.